What is going on, y'all? Robert Sykes, KetoSavage.com, coming back at you with another vlog update. This one's going to be diving into week 30. So, lots of exciting stuff here. We have another competition coming up next week for a peak week. So, let's kind of dive into what we're doing with some of this preliminary peak week information. So, we'll dive into the spreadsheet first, as always. So, week 30 is starting on 10/23/23. I woke up this morning, I woke up at the beginning of the week at 154.2. This is the second week post my pro win at the Washington show. So I was really heavy and aggressive with the intake going into that Washington show with those extra pounds of lamb and the refeed that I showcased for y'all in previous videos. So I really wanted to make sure these last 2 weeks were pretty conservative on the macro front to make sure that I'm continuing to lean out because the goal is to get leaner. So last week we had the photo shoot. I had the 1 extra pound of lamb to fill out a little bit for that. This week there was no photo shoot. There was no peak week, so I really wanted to be conservative with the macros, and I just had the 1 refeed pizza, no extra pound of lamb. As such, my macros this week have pretty much been 125 grams of fat, 110 grams of protein, and 15 grams of total carbs for a total of 1,625 calories. That's pretty low, considering my maintenance is probably around 3,000 to 3,300. So, we've done the 2 cardio sessions. We've kept that constant, 25 minutes at level 16, no changes there. The 1 refeed pizza that I had this week was 290 grams of fat, 180 grams of protein, 15, 20 grams total carbs. Now, if you're noticing, with the refeeds I've had every week, I've increased the fat and I've dropped the protein. That increase in fat and drop in protein is going to ensure that I'm not having any extra bloat, that my skin appears thinner, that I've got more energy coming in, but there's nothing that's going to be kind of like hanging out in my gut and just causing any GI distension. So with that 1 singular refeed, the average for the week has been about 1877 on the calories if you break that out every single day across the course of the week, which again is a pretty substantial drop from the 2,046 that averaged out the week prior and the 2,748 that averaged out during the actual peak week of the competition. The refeed macros themselves wound up being 3390 on the calories, so a pretty hefty dose on the calories, pretty much back up to what my maintenance intake is. The macro ratio with that increasing fat and dropping protein yields about a 77% fat ratio. So my refeed macros with those higher calories, 77% of those calories are coming from dietary fat. So if anybody argues that this is not a ketogenic competition prep protocol, that should hopefully dispel that rumor, because that is as ketogenic as you can get from a macro ratio standpoint. Now, when it comes to the weight, I hit an all-time new low weigh-in this week. So again, like I said, I woke up at the beginning of the week at 154.2, dropped to 153.7, 153.2, 154.4. I didn't really sleep too good that night, so that probably explains that slight increase. And then I woke up on Friday at 153.1. Now, something that's crazy is that is the same weight that I was at when I competed in my very first competition back in 2012. I weighed 153 pounds for that competition. And just for transparency's sake, let's look at what I looked like at that competition. So here I am in 2012, bald-headed, at 153 pounds, all right? So we have that look. Let's look at one more picture. Let's do like here's a side tricep. So this is what I'm looking like. Still got the vascularity, still got the, pretty good degree of definition. This is back in 2012 at 153 pounds. Here's the most muscular pose here. Let me get a back shot. Boom, there's a back shot of my bald head. Now, let's also look at some of the stage photos or some of the photos from this competition that just happened at the same roughly the same weight. Here's some backstage photos here. So again, for comparison, there is a most muscular hands on hip. Here is a back pose for comparison. And then we got a side tricep here. So at pretty much the same weight, 153 pounds, you can see a drastic difference in my musculature size and definition. This is why natural bodybuilding from a weight standpoint goes beyond just what the scale is telling you. A lot of people compete as a natural athlete and their weight doesn't really change that much year to year to year. But you bring in more muscle, you bring in more size, you bring in more shape, symmetry, proportion, and conditioning, and you can't really expect the weight to change all that much. Those are two shots, 153 pounds in both of them, roughly 153 pounds, within a pound or two from those backstage photos, and just a massive difference in what I'm looking like. So don't let several years pass as a natural athlete, step on the scale, see your weight's about the same, and assume that nothing's happening and that you're not building any muscle, because you can definitely see an increase in muscle between those years. But again, as a natural athlete, you're not going to gain 20 pounds of actual skeletal muscle tissue between shows. Like if you weigh the same but you look better, that's the main thing. Like focus on what you actually look like, what your lifts in the gym are looking like. If all the lifts are going up, if you're looking better, if you're more conditioned, you're making progress, you're building muscle, and you're on the right track. So there's my little 2 cents there. I woke up this morning at 150. I'm recording this right now on Saturday morning. But I woke up this morning at 155 pounds. This is after that refeed, so I expected a little bit of an increase in weight there. So that explains that. Tomorrow I'm going to do the Stairmaster and then go back to those normal macros. The next week is a peak week. I'm going to be competing in the Massachusetts Monster Mash as a pro on Sunday instead of Saturday because I'll be in the pro division. We'll dive into all of that with an actual peak week video. It's going to be a little bit longer, so you've got that to look forward to. But when it comes to the meals this week, I changed things up ever so slightly on the refeed. Let me show you what we got going here. So on the 27th, which was the day that I had the refeed, Friday, I had duck fat, eggs, and then rather than ground beef, I threw in cod liver as my meal instead of a ground beef or ground venison or ground lamb, just because I've got some higher fat macros. There's a little bit more sodium in the cod liver. I wanted to kind of see how my body responded to that, and it responded totally fine. Cod liver is a micronutrient powerhouse. It's great. It's tasty. It's a mild fish. I like it. That's pretty much the only change from a nutritional standpoint. The refeed pizza itself looks about the same. I'm keeping the sodium consistent at about 11,600, 11,700 milligrams, so no drastic changes there. And then right back to the normal meals, going back to the ground venison on the every other day, and just the one meal a day with that Bell's Brownie Keto Brick for the total intake of around 125 grams of fat, 110 grams of protein, 15 grams, 20 grams total carbs, and about 1,650 calories. So pretty low on the intake this week, and I'm definitely feeling depleted, especially since I'm only doing one refeed this week, but I feel pretty good. Like my body's metabolism has acclimated to these changes in nutrition, to this downregulation in food. So I'm just taking one day at a time and soaking it all up and enjoying every second of it for what it is, because this is just a moment in time, and being depleted is part of the process, so I got to embrace that. All right, let's dive real quick into some of the posing footage. I got this footage on Friday before I had the refeed, so this is at my lowest weight to date of this prep at 153.1. I'm kind of holding these transitions again for 40 seconds, so I'm going to skip through this. But there I am with the posing, doing a front relaxed, and you can just kind of see that I am pretty depleted. Like this is, again, my lowest weight. I've got a lot of granularity, and I'm very dry, but I am not filled out because I did not have any extra food. This was prior to the refeed again. We took some updated pictures and footage today, filming this on Saturday again, after having the refeed last night. And again, I'm 155 pounds instead of 153, so a little bit heavier. and I can tell that I'm more filled out and I have a little bit more energy, but I wanted to get some of this footage and showcase this to y'all at the lowest weight of the prep thus far. So that's what that is looking like there. Again, from a picture standpoint, we'll go back to the pictures because those kind of show things a little bit better than the video. This is that same day at the lightest weight of 153.1. Again, you can see that I have the dryness and the granularity, but I don't have quite the filled out look. So that will all improve once I go into next week's peak week and I start incorporating that extra pound of lamb early in the week, incorporate the pizza refeed early in the week, the keto pizza, and then just start filling out a little bit for the show that's going to be taking place on Sunday. And again, we will be doing a full recap peak week vlog of the show itself. But I am really pleased at how depleted I'm looking and how dry I'm looking at these lowest weigh-in pictures. I mean, the feathering in the quads there is just really good. For me, from an electrolyte standpoint, keeping the electrolytes consistent at about 11,700 milligrams and about 200 ounces of water is what I'm taking in a day right now, has worked incredibly well. My calves and my ankles typically hold quite a bit of water. That has not been the case with keeping these numbers consistent. So I'm probably going to do that same thing going into next week's peak week. But again, I'll dive into that in greater detail when we are actually in next week's peak week. So that's pretty much all she wrote for this video. We had, again, the photo shoot last weekend. I'm super excited to show you some of those photos. They look amazing from what I can see thus far. Really showcases the definition, and I'm just super stoked to be able to show those with y'all. Super stoked for this competition coming up. This is going to be my pro debut in Massachusetts, so I'll definitely take you all along for the journey there, show you all parts of the process as always. But this is what this week is looking like the week prior to that peak week. So again, thank y'all for tuning in. Thank y'all for checking it out. You know, hit a new low weight this week, so that's promising. I've got a DEXA scheduled for Monday. We will hopefully see something that is promising there and officially making me the leanest man alive. That's the goal. So we will see what that data shows. Again, the lowest DEXA I've received thus far was about a month ago now, 5 weeks, I guess. And that came in at 4.1% body fat. So I know without a shadow of a doubt that I'm certainly leaner than that now. Hopefully no fluctuations in fluid or water retention or anything like that, lack of sleep, stress, or anything causes any variance to what that data shows. So I'll be sure and update y'all on that as soon as I get the DEXA result back. Thank y'all again for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time for peak week and week 31 and the pro debut in Massachusetts.